Okay, so for today we'll be looking at design systems, and I know that we are familiar with the term design system. So if I am to ask any person can just tell me what you understand by design system. Any person, just tell me what you know about design system or what you've been assuming that is design system since your journey.
Hello.
Hello, Susu.
Yeah. So a design system is like the documentation of your components and the styles that you use for your design or the design of a particular product. Yeah.
Yeah, you're correct. That's basically what design system is. But I've I've come to realize that most times we think that design system is actually style guide. So once you tell somebody to create a design system, what the person would easily do would be a style guide. You just see them create it, put colors, put fonts and all of that, which is actually part of a design system. But a design system, it's not what we assume that it is. So for today, what are we going to look at? We are going to look at what design system is. We'll look at the benefit of using a design system. We'll also get to look at how to structure, organize, and implement a design system, and then the components or the things that are supposed to be in a design system. So we are not going to finish that with the list because the list is long. So in the next class, that's on Wednesday, we are not going to complete that. So now, what is a design system? A design system is a collection of guidelines, principles, components. So you see that it's not just a collection of the components that we know. It's a collection of guidelines. It's a collection of principles. It's a collection of reusable components that can be used to create consistency across any design that you're doing. So even if you're doing because I've come to realize that if you have a perfect or a good design system, even if you're designing for websites, it will be the same thing. If you're designing for mobile, it will be the same thing. You don't need to start doing a different design system for mobile app and all of that. It serves as a single source of truth for design and development team. So it's like a set of rules that developers are it's a set of rules that governs developers and even designers on how to go about what they are doing. Now, the main purpose of having a design system is to establish consistency, because and efficiency. By using design systems such as typography and all of that, people in your team can easily follow the same pattern whether you're there or not. So that's the reason why sometimes you see a particular company, they would sack their product designer, or they would design, or their graphic designer will resign. But then if you look at their content, you would know that you easily spot their content, except there's no design system. Even in our regular graphics, we also have design system. Except there's no design system. That's where you see that the new designer will come and it will give his own way of designing and all of that. There's some companies that if you check them, they have a particular style that they use to design. Come rain comes sun, any of them, you see that that design is constant. Uh, for example, if you look at some social media, you see that most times they prefer to keep their things about the company, they prefer to keep it under below with a box, put their social media icons and all of that. That's their own pattern. Whereas some people just decide to put their mobile app and their web app link, and that's their own pattern. Now, what are the things that we can find in a design system? You can find the UI component that is mostly the set of reusable icons, reusable things that you can customize and use at every point. We have the buttons, the input field, icons, navigation bars, and all of that. Then we also have our typography guidelines. So this is more like the rules you use for choosing your fonts consistently across all board. We have the color palettes, where you get to define, or where you get to put the kind of colors that you're using. You get to ensure that this color, it will be the same across all board. So it's not enough just doing this design system. Like, it's not enough doing it. It's actually the what is important is you trying to follow the system that you've already built. Then we have layouts and grid system as part of the design system, where you get to design how you want to arrange your elements across all board, the kind of white spacing you want to leave across all board, and all of that. We also have design patterns such as error handling, onboarding, search functionalities, how you want them to look like. Then we have accessibility guidelines that includes the guidelines, the standards to which you want your designs to be inclusive and accessible to all users, including those with disability, those with short-sightedness, or those with bad eyesight. That's why you see that today you see people, when you talk about accessibility guidelines, you see people decide to, okay, say we are going to include, for every design we are doing, we are going to include the dark mode for people that cannot comfortably use light mode. We're also going to include maybe an audio feature, where something that can easily, so for people that are blind, you can include an audio feature where they need to just talk and it will write for them and all of that. You also need to include that kind of guideline in your design system. We also have the brand guideline that has to do with the brand you're working for, what they are for, what they stand, and what you need to do for them. Now, we also need to note that design system is not just beneficial for you as a UI UX designer. It's beneficial for the development team because it will make them work faster. Just imagine them trying to they import all of the design system in their codes, or where they get to save it. You know that at every point they use the same pattern. You don't need to they don't need to start thinking of other ways, or they don't need to start thinking of what they need to do next. So this is like a sample design system that you have on the screen. As you can see, it doesn't just contain the color, text, and all of that. We have different things such as labels. We have things such as primary colors, secondary colors, and so on. So now that we've been talking about design system and all of that, let's look at some advantage of a design system. One of the advantage is scalability and flexibility. A design system will allow you to build more products without increasing your team or size. So you can reuse these components in different projects. You can also avoid duplication. So so I recently started working with a particular company. I started working with a particular company, and when I joined that company, it was very easy for me to start designing the first day I joined them, because they already had a design system that I did not start to look at for colors that they will use. I did not start to look at all of those things. So I think one of the things that is very important as a designer is that for every project you want to do, it's advisable, or it's very important that you build a complete design system so that you can reuse it. You reuse it anywhere, anytime, and you don't need to stress yourself at every point. So one of the goals you need to have for yourself is create a design system. No matter how complex, it create a design system. Know what you're trying to do. So if tomorrow you decide to leave a project and another person is coming in, the person will be it will just be so easy for the person to adapt to it will be it will be so easy for them to um it will be so easy for them to easily adapt. And so I was in a class on Saturday. Sorry for that, guys. So I was in a call on Saturday, and the guy was trying to explain how he joined the company, and he spent 3 months trying to understand their project and trying to understand all they were supposed to do, because they did not have a proper documentation of what they needed to do. Now that is actually very bad, because if they had a designer previously, the designer was supposed to document all of these things, so it would not take him 3 months to get to I don't know if he's exaggerating, but then he said it took him 3 months to be able to check for all what they've done. You know those kind of Figma board that you reach that is so that the screens are so much that you don't even know which screen that this designer has then designed to, what he has not done and all of that. So it's also very important that you try to document anything you're doing at any point. You can reuse it at any point. Then we have another benefit is maintainability. A design system will make it easier for you to update and improve your product. If you decide today and say, okay, you want to improve your products because you have a design system, it will just be easy for you to quickly update that product and as fast as possible. So imagine a scenario where you get to use where you get to design a button, and because you did not use it as a component, you designed this button and it's green. You decide to use green color. Along the line, after designing everything, you did not use components, and you have at least, let's say you have 300 screens. Now, these 300 screens includes the other error screens and all of that. You have up to 300 screens, and tomorrow the company is restructuring. They are restructuring, so they now need to change their name, change their logos, change their patterns. So just imagine the stress and the time it will take you for you to start changing each of those things one after the other. But with a design system, you can just go to the main component, change the color, and then you're done with what you want to do. Then for productivity, it helps you to speed up your design development and process. You can save your time, effort, you can save all of these things because you already have a design system. Instead of you creating them from scratch, you can just use it. So it's also very important that you learn to document everything you're trying to do. It also helps to improve collaboration amongst people. So between the designers and the developers, it will be very easy to collaborate because they already have this design system that they get to also include or implement in what they are doing. So if they want to use a color, they know that they've already saved all of these things. I don't know how that's code. I don't know how their database works, but I know that they can save it because it's I've worked with a team of developers before where I've worked with a team of developers before where they had to what's it called? They after uploading a particular icon set. So after they finished uploading this the icons and all of that, I had to by mistake. So I was looking for a particular icon that was not part of the icon set. So I had to go and use another icon. And the backend developer immediately noticed that it was a different set of icon I was using because it was easy for him to search for the icon where he saved it. But because I was using a different one, he could not see it as part of the component. And then I had to now look for a way to improvise to use something that is similar with what they have on their own icon set to work with it. So for consistency to help your product look the same, they would have the same feel, they'll have the same look, regardless of who is working on them. So regardless if a new designer should come on the project, it will still be the same thing. The design system will also help elevate your design quality because you're following a particular pattern, so it will appear the same way and it will make the design as fine as possible and all of that. Overall, design system helps team to create better products, to also improve user experience that will lead to good customer service. So I was looking at my designs. I think the designs I did 2 years ago or 2 years back, and I was looking at where I went to download icon. So I used to use this, I think is font, I've forgotten the name, but there's this particular icon set that I use that I just go and design and download icons from. And I realized that they don't have the same colors, they don't have the same weight, they don't have the same, when we talk about icons, we have your field icons, you have your outline icons, and some of these other icons. But because it doesn't look the same, I was trying to design a dashboard, I think then, and looking at the icon on the design, I was irritated. But then it was like my best design. It was very fine then 2 years ago. But now that I know better, it's actually very easy to go back to your design and say, no, you've been doing something that is not worth it. And now you have to do something that's that people would actually like. When they look at it, they would like it and all of that. So be looking at how to structure, organize, and implement a design system. One thing you need to know is design a designed architecture is very crucial for a successful implementation. So you need to plan it. For everything we do in product design, we tend to plan. Yeah, so we tend to, for everything we do, we tend to plan and see how we plan in product design or in UI UX as intermediate. You don't even need to rush to do any design. You need to plan everything. Plan as to your font. So there's something that I was telling somebody that if you come to my design and you ask me why I'm using Pompi to design, I would give you a reason why I'm using Pompi. So one thing I don't like doing, or one thing I don't like doing is not knowing why I'm using a particular thing. And that's because I take time to plan what I'm doing. That's why even if I've not done plenty design on Figma, or let's say I'm behind schedule for a particular design, with what I have and the explanation I'll give to you, you would assume or you just think that I've done something better. So in essence, try to plan everything that you're doing in your design process. Plan it. Take our time to plan before you start going to Figma to do all of those things. Figma should be your secondary part. It should be like what you do after you're done planning, after you know why. So if I ask a question and say, why are you using a particular color in your design? Would you be able to tell people why you're using that particular design, or you won't be able to tell them? You just feel I did this, the font is fine, the color is fine, that's why I'm using it. No. So when you talk about planning, so when you're planning, you also need to document. I got to realize that it's something that most designers don't do. It's something that most designers don't do. We don't document our every process. If you document your every process, it will also be very easy for you to learn new things and know what you need to do next. So now here are some key aspects of a design system architecture. You have your component library. Now it involves different things. You have your component library that you have to, this is where you get to do all your reusable elements, things that you want to use, such as your form inputs, your buttons, your cards. So most times people don't design to cards. People don't design cards. You need to also think of your models. You think of all of these things that you use. So it's a very key aspect of a design architecture or a complete design system architecture. You need to think of your models. You need to think of the buttons, the cards, everything you're doing. Now, one thing is not just thinking about it. Remember that even if you're designing for a website, you will still have to come back to do the mobile view. And you need to also ensure that when you're planning for your components should have different variants. They should have different size. They should have different colors, different states. So if somebody wants to design, I'm designing for a website and I already decided for just a website. Imagine I want to now start doing the mobile view. You can see that most of the fonts or the text I use in the main website design would not be the same that I'll use for the mobile. And it will also not be the same that I'll use for the mobile app. So you need to also think of different variations. You need to think of different sizes, different colors, and different states. This would help you in it will help you to follow a pattern and it will give you consistency. Also, there's also another thing we don't like doing, which is naming convention. convention. You need to learn how to name your components very well so that it will not, people can easily notice it. That's why if you copy a particular font, a particular icon set, you would see that their names, you can just use the names to search for it. So if you have to document, or you have to name your design system in the way that if you're looking for it, you can easily see it. Next one is styles. But are like the visual aspects of a design system that includes your colors, your typography, your icons, spacing, grids, and all of that. So, hello, is someone saying anything? Hello, Anifa, I can't hear you. Hello, believe, please, can you still hear me? Like, can you still hear me very well?
Yes, I can hear you. I don't think she was talking. No, I
Oh,
can still
okay.
hear
Okay, so for this, you need to actually define the different variation that you would use for your typography. Remember that what you use for your header text is not the same for what you use as your main text. And the header text size for mobile is also going to be different from your header text style and web. So you need to also check it. You should also follow a clear and consistent naming convention and documentation. Try as much as you can to always document it. We also have design tokens. These are like a set of reusable variables that you can use at every point. So you can use it at every point. It's easy to customize this and maintain consistency across across board. Then we have the version control. Know that your design system are living entities. Remember when we were talking about information architecture, and we said you need to actually think of your content as living things that they have to evolve over time. So your version controls should just the same way they do in GitHub, that you can know that, okay, this is version 1 of my design system, this is version 2 of my design system. They also do it in Git. It helps you to manage changes. It also helps you to track updates and all of that. Then you need to also think of your documentation platforms. There are different documentation platforms. For some people, they use Figma to document. For some people, they use Google Docs to document, depending on what you like to document your process. Is also nice that you use it. You use that platform and you know that this is where I'm going to document it. This is where I'm going to add instructions. Something like, so I recently learned something also, that as designers, if there's any bad design, if there's any bad UI, not like bad UI can be fine, and then you give it to developers and they try to implement what you've already designed. If it's bad, you are the cause of it. So that's what I learned recently. That if you're designing something, if you're handing over to designer, you need to hand over plus a documentation to them. So the documentation, for instance, you put, let me say you're trying to do an order detail page. Now you know that your order detail page from visualization, you should have the picture of the order. Say if it's food, you should have the picture big as the food. Then you need to have the heading telling you what you're buying. If it's chicken and rice, then you would have a short description of what you're buying, and then you would have what's it called, the pricing, then maybe a checkout button or a buy now button, all of that. This is how we visualize it. Now, you know that once you put the content, because you're also the UX person, you put the content in the design, and the developer is trying to implement. Let's say you put your content in 3 lines. Is it 3 lines? 3 sentences, first, second, third. And the developer is implementing it and he decides to make it 4 lines. It's your fault, because you're supposed to put like a note in your documentation and tell them that this content should not exceed 3 lines. If you can't put it in 3 lines, just put this dot dot dots or any other thing. But when viewers are looking at it, and maybe put a view more button close to it. But it should not, once they come to the app, it should not exceed that 3 lines. That's how particular, or that's how you should look at your designs. So now I want to hear the funny experience you've had with developers when they try to. Okay, I think the question is, has anybody ever designed something for a life project, and then you look at the design and you look at the design and you look at what you can see online, and you are like, no, it's not me that designed this thing. Anybody? And how you were able to battle that with your developer? Is there anybody on this call? So I don't know why we are keeping quiet. This is intermediate class and not okay. So promise. So how was the experience and how did you solve that? Did the developer fight you?
Okay, so like it was on an Excel, a design about Excel, right? So there were some components that um I worked on, and when I saw the result, I was like, no, this is not it. Like, this is not given at all. So how I solved it was I had to like give them an instance, like an actual instance of what we have on how Excel looks like, literally how it's supposed to be. Then when I gave them an instance of it, so since they were to compare two Excel sheets, right? So they had to like I think they had to like import a normal table, both sides, then added some things that they think they can actually do, because I felt like the developers didn't know what to do or how to go about it. But not all of the contents that were on the design that they implemented, but it was quite reasonable. Actually, we had to agree on the one that we should leave and the one that we should take out for it to come out much more presentable. So just that's how we were able to resolve it at that time.
Oh, okay. So I can actually relate to this because recently after designing, I was told that the design was not fine. So they gave me the staging link to go and check. I went through the staging link and I checked the design. I was looking at this design. I was looking at the live version. I was looking at my design. And then um it's they had to blame me because I was not also following up the designer. Now, the following up of your designers can be actually very tricky because you don't know when they are coding. Most of them, they like coding in the night. So, and in the night, because I'm a 9 to 5, while I do 9 to 5, in the night, say from 6, I'm supposed to be doing my side gigs or other projects. You would not expect me to now stay on it. But imagine I had to document all of these things, and in my design system, I included some comments and all of that, or even the documentation, and send to them and say, okay, this this is how it's not supposed to be. And if you get to this point that you can't implement it the way it's in the content, you have to meet me. So that's why another thing I advise now is that try to learn most of these technical things. So it's not it's not because you want to be jack of all trades. No, you want to be able to understand their own pain points. So I've come to realize that one thing I've come to realize is that as a product designer, you, or as a UI UX person, you are like the intermediate between the users and the stakeholders. Now, not just the users and the stakeholders, you're also supposed to be between your developers, because sometimes the truth is, sometimes most of these people, you might not know their strengths before they invited them or before they employ them in the company. And some of them, for instance, that Excel sheet, maybe this person has not seen something like that before, and this is his first time of doing it. So you also need to try as much as you can to have this form of relationship, not this form of relationship with your developers, so that you can be able to understand their pain points. You can also be able to understand what they can implement, what they cannot implement, so that you know where you can help them to ensure that the design, because in UI UX, we don't say this part, but sometimes our designs and the live version is just like what I ordered versus what I got. And the first thing somebody is saying, the first thing they are saying when they go to the website is, bad UI, bad UX. Nobody would want to see the Figma link. Nobody will ask you, what's the Figma link? Let me go and see it and say, okay, this is how it is on Figma. It's not like this. Even the boss, even the owner of the company. My boss doesn't don't before he will come to Figma to look at your Figma link, just know that maybe he's asking you of your report, and maybe you've told him that you've gone far, and what he's seeing on the on the live data, or on the live code on the staging link, yeah, they've not gotten to that screen. You might now want to confirm that truly you've gone far and you are not the one delaying the work. That's the only time it would come to check your designs. The next, the everything is seen is on the staging link, so it's assuming that what is on the UI, that is what is on the live version. So try to follow them. Then try to also, we have design tools. You have to integrate some tools into your style, some tools such as, there are different tools that you can, this is mostly for the developers where they get to use their Angular, React, all of those tools. Then for documentation, we have tools like Storybook. I don't know if anyone has come across Storybook before. Has anyone? Just drop it on the chat if you've used Storybook before for your documentation. We have Zero Height, we have Backlights, and all of these ones that people use for documentation. These tools should be chosen based on how you can use it, their functionality and usability, and how it can be used. Then another key aspect of a design system is developers API. So for smooth documentation, most developers like to have access to things that they can use in their APIs. So these APIs will enable developers to use design system when they are doing all of those things. So as part of your research, you should also know how you should also give them access to be able to access all of these things and all of them. Then we have testing and validation as part of a very key important thing. You also need to test and validate that your components are working perfectly across all boards, and they're across all boards. Sometimes you might decide to do a drop down and it's not working somewhere, and you've already included it in your design system, and when they try to implement it, it's not working. Now that's also your fault. So you need to also test, you need to test your design system and all of that. Then we have scalability. That means you should design in mind that these things would have to improve. You have to improve on it. You have to make changes. You have to add new elements. You have to add all of these things. So put it in mind that you need to do it. Therefore, collaboration, I've already talked about it. It helps to it will help you to collaborate well. So now we'll be looking at the different components that you can have in a design system. We have the buttons. Now, what are buttons? Buttons are like our interactive elements that we use to navigate every page or every screen. So you need to create different buttons, such as the primary button, secondary button, outline, and disabled buttons. All of these buttons, you need to create it and ensure that it's consistent across all board, including the sizes and the spacing. All of these things, you need to put it in mind. Now, under buttons, we have different types of buttons. We have the primary button, we have the secondary button, we have the call to action, we have our text link. For some people that use link, we have our text links and all of that. Then you should also create different variants, such as over states, active states, disabled states, states that you've not clicked on, different states. We know the different states of buttons that you need to create. Then for elements, you need to know the background color that you're using, the border radius, the button text, all of these things. You need to consider it when creating your design system. Now we are talking about the list of these that we create. Then for text, what these are like for text, we all know what typography is. We have different fonts, we have different sizes. You need to create different widths, different styles, and ensure that they are consistent across all board and they are readable. Now, some of the types of text that you would have to create, we have the header text, body text, links, buttons, you have subheadings. So when you have headings, these headings, we need to break them down to H1, H2, H3, H4, and H5. I think H5, H6, something like that. You need to break it down. Then for your variants, you have the regular text, you have the bold, italic, you have the underline text, and so on and so forth. Then for elements, you need to consider when building your text, you need to consider the font family. What font family are you sizes that you'll be using across all board, the line heights you'll be using, your letter spacing. How are you going to space the letters across all boards? You think of all of those ones. Then for colors, what are colors? These are, you need to follow the principles of colors and all of that. So let me ask a question now, and I need at least 3% to respond. So if you want to design, if you're asked to design, how do you come up with your colors? Now this is in a case where you don't have there's no logo for the company and they don't have a logo, they're just starting out and they only have the name. How do you come up with your colors for that particular design? Do I need to start calling names? We are 23 in this class. Should I call names? Guys.
Yeah.
Yeah, Miriam.
Good evening.
Yeah, good evening.
For me, what I do most times is the brand. The company has a name, but there is a general color for some kind of brand. So I check for the colors concerning that brand. For example, if it's food brand, red is part of the colors for food brand. So I just check part of the colors and then come up with different shades from that colors. That's what I do actually.
Oh, okay. Yeah, Susu, you wanted to say something too.
Okay, I think Maria has said part of what I want to say, but if whenever I want to design, knowing that okay, a particular company they have like she said they have a color, but sometimes I want to design like for maybe people that don't have maybe don't have a particular color or maybe okay design this thing for me, come up with the color and all of that. All I do is I try to know what the design is all about, what design is centered on, then I actually go on and research on the particular color that I think suits that particular brand. Say, for example, now I'm designing for a company. Okay, let's say take for example, I'm designing for e-commerce now, for example. Of course, I would want to like for Jumia now they use orange. I'll try to know why they use that orange and I'll try to know how I can actually incorporate it in the new design I'm doing or get a color that is far better than that will I say Jumia color. Yes, so basically I make research and I use this is it 60-20-60-30-10 principle to get my colors whenever I want to design. Yes, I think that.
Okay, yeah, nice. Let me check the chat. For me, I search for a color specific to the product. Okay, so yeah, these are different ways you can decide to check. But sometimes I think colors, you know that there's something called emotions and design. So you need to speak to the particular set of people you're speaking to. So in as much as you're trying to also build a food brand, for instance, let's say it's a food brand and we all know that food brands they like using I say orange. I think I've discovered that they like using orange, but then you also need to conduct your research when it comes to colors. If you're designing that food brand for a particular age range of children, it would be advisable that even if it's what's it called, it's a food brand and there's a standard color, you just need to look at the colors that work for this particular set of individuals. So for children, once you're building something or you're designing something for children and you see what's it called? Yeah, exactly. It appeals more to your target audience, and you want to build something for children. The first thing that comes to your mind is trying to use pink, trying to play around pink that would actually give them that mood, or that will actually put them in that mood to use your application and all of that. So for design system, when you're trying to build your colors that would convey emotions effectively, you need to think of your primary color, secondary color, your accent color, background color, and text color. So I've come to also realize that it's not right using pure black. If you get to notice, pure black has this way of becoming too sharp on white. So you need to set all of those things. Then for variants, you would set things like light color, dark, over, active, and all of that. You also get to set the different shades of colors. You set the different hues of colors. Like you just set the different colors. So there will be a class where we'll get to we'll talk about color psychology in full. And how to effectively use colors from the color wheels. So when I started designing, or up till now, I still find it very difficult to match colors. I still find it very difficult to match colors. So there are some tools I use to help me, because I've come across people that. So I tell people something. Look at, you don't know everything in this product design, like in this UI UX. You will not get to know every aspect of it. I know that we have people that are very good in research. We have people that are very good in coming up with user persona. We have people that are very good with prototyping. We have people that are very good with the design itself. And we have people that can use seconds. Color stress a lot. We have people that can use seconds to come up with a very good design system. Now, all of this set of people, they are different. You can't learn everything. So once you know your weakness, it's better that you ask people to help you in the process, or you look for tools that can help you with it. Not going to keep. I've seen situations where people are using blue and pink, and they will use the pink as a background color and use the blue as a text color. Like, it's so it's so not giving. Let me use the word. It's so not giving that you would it's actually not giving. You just look at it and you're off. You don't want to even use that design any longer. So when you're trying to use all of this thing, look for tools that would help you if you're not very good with it. But then if you understand color psychology very well, tools will just help you know, check for the color. But then once somebody say, okay, let's design something for kids, you know the kind of colors that you would immediately bring up for those kids and how you can do it. Okay, so we also have the icon libraries. Now, for icon libraries, these are like these are icons that we use to enhance our user experience. I've come to realize that it's not appropriate that you leave. For instance, you're trying to do typography stresses you more. Really. Uh, Everybody has the different part of this thing that used to stress them. So I think one of the best ways to be able to get these things right is trying to create a very good mood board. People don't do it. Mood board can be from anything. It can be from you're looking at your house and you're seeing how your, so you're seeing the color of your mob stick, and you like the color that they use there, yellow, red, yellow, red, yellow, red. You can just take a picture of it, and that's your mood board. You can see from a normal graphics and see the kind of fonts that they use, take it. So if you start creating mood boards and start doing all of this, still boils down to research, and you start doing this, you get to see things that would help you a lot it will help you a lot. So for icons, we have the navigation icons. We have this kind of icons I use for navigation. We have actions, we have alerts, we have social media, we have a lot of this that you can group them up. So when trying to build your icon packs, it's advisable that you group them into all of this. Your navigation icon should be one part, your actions icon should be one part, your alerts icon should be one part, social media one part, and some other icons that you can have should be one part. Then for the variants, you should have different size, different colors, different feel, different strokes. Because sometimes if you want to design for instance, you want to design this screen, success screen, and you decide that okay, you don't want to bring in any image, you want to still maintain the icon that you're using from each of you want to still maintain it, you would have to it's advisable that you can be able to edit the strokes and all of that. Then things that you need to take into consideration when working on your icon packs, what we call the icon names. So most people don't do it. They don't rename their icons. So I try as much as I can. It's a lot of work. So that's why I tell people that I see some people that will tell you that they can finish a design system in one day. It's not possible, except you're doing copying, you're copying and pasting, or I don't know what you're trying to do, but a design system in one day is something that it's just like you saying you can build a house in one day, because your design system is like your foundation. So you need to take time. Your icons, you name them very well. You include a reference link. You also include a you also include a guideline of how you can use these icons and all of that. Then for forms, you need to create forms for data collection. I've not seen any design that there's no data and there's no part where people get to collect data. So the types of forms that we have the input field, we have check boxes, we have radio buttons, we have drop downs and all of that. Then for the variants, you have focus, you have over, you have error, you have success. Then for the input elements, you have input labels, you have the placeholders, then you have validation rules. Now these validation rules includes if someone's network or someone imputed the wrong password, you get to tell this person that you've imputed the wrong password and all of that, and how they can um work on it. Then we also have models. For models, they are like cards that we use to display content in a structured way, such as product cards and all of that. So if you're building for e-commerce, it's also advisable that you include this as part of your design system, your models, where you get to build models for it. You get to do things like tool tips. You get to add sliders, tabs. I know that once you're doing all of these things, you're doing the various size, you're doing the various styles, you're also including the various functionalities and all of that. So another component of a design system that would get to build is the navigation bar. And the navigation is how people get to interact with different sections. So for navigation, we have the header, we have footers, we have sidebars that would help users to easily that will help them to easily go around the platform. So you need to also work on doing all of those things. For navigation bar, you have sidebars, you have breadcrumbs, you have paginations. Then for the states, you can get to do the active and the over states. Then things you also need to plan in your design system is alert and message design, how you need to incorporate them. You have to add different alert styles to your design, such as success, warning, error message, informational messages. So if I click on stop share, is there like a pop-up that will come out to tell me you're about to stop sharing your screen and all of that. For the type, you get to do success, error, warning, info, then dismiss. You have to do options to close the alert. So dismiss stage, you need to also do all of that. So I'm trying to explain all of this so that by Wednesday we just dive into creating a design system and some of the tools that you can use that can also help you enhance you creating a design system. I also had to create a list of server links. So I'm going to open that to share it soon. I'm going to open that. That list contains where you can read all of these things individually on your own and learn how it's going to enhance your design process. Then you also this is another part that people don't really look at. You also need to add avatars to your designs. So avatars are part of it. You need to create guidelines for creating avatars consistently. Now we have for the description, it's like a component that represents users or profile. You know that anywhere you see avatar, they are like stuff that we use to talk about profiles, maybe pictures. You want to include pictures. Now this is the part where if you want to use real yeah, I know my slide is still in form, so I'm just so if you need to use real forms or real images, this is where you need to plan for it. So there's a particular design I did in my company, and I used user profiles. I don't know if you know that plugin on Figma. I had to use that plugin called user profile. And after I used it to design it, it was actually very fine. The design was nice, and my boss agreed on the design. But we are now having issues, which is we have to change the pictures on it. So we need to now start taking real pictures. So for your designs, if you know that you need to include real photographs, and we know that we have all of these how do we have people that would sue you for using their pictures, ask for pictures from your stakeholders, ask for it so you can get to plan when you're building your design system. Now the different shapes that you can use for avatars, you can use the circular, you can use square, you can use rounded. For sizes, you can do small, medium, and large sizes of your avatar. This is going to help when remember that for your design system, you're thinking of all the possible platforms that you would use it for, be it mobile, web, and all of that. So you need to do different sizes. We also have the dialogues and modals. You need to think of dialogues and modals, such as overlay components. So if I need to display a component on another component, what are the stuffs I'll use? What are the modals? Now, for different types of modals, we have full screen modals. We have the centered. That's the most popular one, where you have an overlay. You just use your black to cover it, and you put your white model in the middle. Then we have the bottom sheet, the ones that is at the bottom. You need to create it from the bottom. Now the different states, we have the closed and open model, so you need to build for that. There are another list that you can have in your design system: spacing and layout. You need to establish guidelines that are used to maintain spacing and alignment across all board. So the things that you need to consider in this, we have the margins, paddings, grids, columns, gutters. So you need to know, okay, for gutters, what number of pixels am I using? Then the variants, we have the desktop, tablet, and mobile. When you're doing grid, when you're trying to do your design system for grid, you have column, gutters. So you have your desktop, you have your mobile, you have for your iWatches and all of that. Then for the elements, you do the spacing units, grid dimension, you add breakpoints and all of that. Then also another thing you need to include in your design system to tell you that design system is not just style guide. You know that in style guide, what you mostly add is component. You add things like components, color, text, and all of that. Style guide is like a part of your design system. So you also need to add smooth animation and transition at your designs for a design system that would help in some form of interaction. Things like over effects, loading, spinning. If this is spinning, you need to also think of variants like speed, easing out, easing in, duration. So for elements, we have the animation type, trigger, and keyframes. These are things you need to think of when doing that. Then for accessibility, you need to ensure accessibility for your design to to be sure that a wide range of users can use it. Things like screen reader compatibility, you need to think of keyboard navigation, alternative text, and all of that, focus indication, contrast ratio, dark mode and light mode. Think of the best practices. Then for brand elements, that's where things like logo should come in. Now for logo, you need to think of different logo variation. For whites, when it's on dark mode, the logo, how you want it to be. You need to think of the guidelines, the logo usage. There are some companies that will tell you that the you cannot use their logo on the right hand side. You cannot use their logo on the left hand side. There is a you can't use your logos in some of the places. So it's actually very important that you get to know all of these guidelines so that it will help you to make your design system and your designs very easy to use. Now, we've mentioned all of the things from text to colors to all of these things that you need to make your designs to make your design system very good and flexible. So is there any question so far? Is there any question? Okay, so I'll just get to talk about one thing now before we now look at the different things we can get to achieve today. When you talk about naming your designs, naming your designs, most persons don't name their designs very well. I used to be should I use the word victim? No, not victim. I used to be part of those people that don't like naming designs. So you need to know that it's very important that you name your designs. Like for every screen you work with, it won't take you it won't take you time. It's just to double click on your frame and you can rename if you're not going through that way, or you go to the left hand side and double click on it and rename your frame. You can rename it for why is it important? It will help you to know where something is. So for instance, have you been in a situation where you tried to view your design and you discover that because you've duplicated duplicated so many things and some of the designs are not in the actual frame, and it's now a problem for you because it's not in the actual frame. If you try to view it, you won't see it. And if you're showcasing your designs to your stakeholders, what they want to see, they don't want to see that Figma board where you are zooming in and zooming out. They want to see the prototype. And you go to your prototype, you are seeing it is not there. And you'll be like, it was there, oh, it was there. I don't know why I can't find it again. You hear those kind of things. It was there, but I can't find it again. It was there, I can't find it again. Now, if you want to now say you have up to 20 to 30 to 40 screens on that particular page, and you want to now start looking because you did not name your frame and your frame is frame 1.00, 100, 1500, you now start looking for the exact frame and all of that. It's going to take your time. But if you know the exact frame, or if you've renamed the frame, it will be very easy to just drag it from where it is and put it in the exact frame that you have. Now, these are some of the general practice you need to know when you're trying to name something. You need to use simple terms that would describe what you're trying to name. You need to try to use hyphens. So for instance, if you have different onboarding screens, you have more than one onboarding screens and you want to name it, you can use something like onboarding screen -1, -2, and all of that to be able to name the different onboarding screen. Now, when you're also naming verification screens and all of that, you might have plenty verification screen. And remember that what we do is we duplicate screens. We duplicate frames. We don't create new frames at every point. So learn to try to, because if you duplicate your verification screen, for instance, and you're trying to do different verification screens, we all have verification screens, which will now be very difficult even when you want to try to prototype your work. So it's very important that you try to name all of these things using hyphens. You can also use lower cases or any of that. And now you can use lower cases to make the screen fine. Also try to avoid one. I've seen people do 1, 2, 3. You tell them, okay, can I see your screen? And you see 1, 2, screen 1, screen 2, screen 3, screen 4. People are naming screen like that. You also need to follow an order of operations. For instance, from here to here, where is it taking you to? So that when you're naming, you can name it very well. Now, for example, if you're trying to name a button, your button should always, especially in components, you should always have something like, even in colors, when you're trying to do your design system for colors and you're trying to save it, you would see a pop-up where you can include the name of the color and where you need to use it. Sometimes it's advisable that if you're naming, for instance, for text, if I'm trying to name text and I'm naming say I'm using capital letters, or no, I want to name text, my header text. Sometimes I do H1 slash, I will now put the color of the H1. If it's I'm using H1 blue, I'll put the color, I'll put the size H1 this, then I'll put maybe the line spacing. So all of these things I use slash to differentiate it, to know that this is what this is what this is not. So if I want to use it, it will be very easy for me. So for buttons, if you want to name your buttons, you can also say things like button, primary button slash, then you put what you need to put there slash. If it's default, if it's over, if it's disabled, if it's this, you need to name all of those things. Now, some tips in helping you that would help you to create a good design system. One is you need to define your goals. You need to know the purpose of the design system. You need to understand the problem. Some of you will be tired when you keep hearing the problem, the problem, the problem, because that is what makes you a good put a good UI UX designer, when you're able to know exactly why, the aim of why you're trying to do what you're trying to do. You get to know, okay, this is what I'm doing and this is why I'm doing it. This is the problem I'm trying to solve. It can be that your company, they already have a design system, but you don't feel comfortable with the design system, and you decide to, okay, let's do a remodeling of this design system. You need to know the goal. You need to clearly articulate. You need to clearly tell them the purpose of using that particular goal. You need to tell them, okay, this is the purpose. This is the reason why I want us to remodel. Then the next thing is you need to gather requirements. When you know, I mean, gather requirements, you need to involve all stakeholders, designers, developers, product managers, even your company heads and all of them, for to gather requirements and insights. This can be telling you of their goals, the plans, everything they want to do. We are in situations, or we are in companies where, yeah, so these I don't have what should I say it? I'm just explaining from, there's no slide for this, but like I said, I already created a list that I'm going to send to you. That the list contains almost everything I'm talking about today. So all you need to do is to click on this link and it takes you to the different sections for you to read more, and also video content. So it's like um so it's like okay, let me just open it here. Few minutes, open it. So this is the link, or these are the links that was curated for where you can get the full one, cards, how to use cards, alerts, avatars, all the things I talked about, how to use them. Then some of the best design systems. So I'm going to share this after the class, and that you can use to check all of this one after the other. So for now, my slide is not showing again. I'm just trying to explain. You get now? All right, so where did I stop? I was saying something about getting to meet all of your stakeholders. Now, some of you will be wondering, why is this very important, or why is this important now? Because we are in Nigeria where in the country, yeah, anything goes. Yeah, people that are employing you, because they can't pay you, or they can't pay for the services. They mostly don't require all of these things, but it's very important because the goal now, I don't know of any other person, but the goal now is not even to work for a Nigerian company again, or it's not even to earn in Naira again, because every day the currency is, should I say, is depreciating. Tomorrow now we might come and we'll see 1.5. So if you're working for, if you're working for an international company, they have all of these standards. They follow it. They follow all of these standards. So you also need to learn all of them before you conduct, or before you come up with any project. You have to follow the pattern, the guidelines. You need to follow the due process of communicating, collaborating with your team. When you start working in a company that has structure, you get to understand that this thing called collaboration. You can't stay to work on your own. You can't stay to choose something on your own because you're the product designer. You need to involve every other person. Then you also need to audit existing designs. So you look at designs that are already existing and look at the design assets, look at what is not working. Now, the best way to audit is to look at the best design systems. So we have a material design system. I think we have Apple design system and some other design system. We have Atlassian's design system, and some of these design systems that are actually very good. You need to audit those design systems to see, okay, what is this that is not there and what is not there. Yeah, you need to start small. All of these things are good. They are all good that you get to put as plenty things as possible. But then you need to start from somewhere and scale. You can start from the style guide that you know, and then at the end of the day, you now start building more design systems, building it. Remember to always create the style guide because consistency is key. Your style guide will contain your colors and all of that. Build different components, collaborate with your team, then document effectively. You need to document everything you do, document it. So when we're talking about documentation, it's it's another topic on its own, because documentation is something that most of us, when I say most of us, I'm also sometimes guilty of not documenting because we feel like it's not as important as it's supposed to be. I even learned recently that for every project you're carrying out, you need to do a case study for it. Like, even if you're not trying to build your portfolio, because we feel like building case studies when you're trying to build your portfolio, that's when you need a case study. For every design you are embarking on, or any project you're embarking on, you need to have a case study. So that case study will help you know the direction the project is taking and how it's going to be. And from the case study, people would get to understand why you did this. The same way you put your design this on your case study and all of that. It will also help developers to know, especially when they want to start writing, when they want to start doing some things, they will get to understand the pain points and where you're coming from. Because sometimes it feels like these developers, they don't even understand the pain point of the users. Their own is just to build and go, but you need to give them something. So for any project you're carrying out, be it office or anything, case study is very important. So that if at the end of the day you leave and somebody else is coming to continue it, they would know where and what to do with it. So so we've come to the end of today's class. Is there any question? It's where you need to ask your question. So on Wednesday, we are going to dive into practicals where we get to build a design system from start to finish. Some of the best practice and all of them. Is there any question? Any question?
Okay,
So let me ask you. Okay, super.
Okay, like I was gonna ask, like, if, for example, now I want to design, maybe create a product, and I actually create the whole design system for that particular product. Is it possible that when I'm creating, maybe I'm coming up to another product again, I have another project to do, is it possible I can actually use that same design system for that product, maybe just do a little iteration to it? I don't
Yes,
know if it's possible.
yes,
Oh,
yes,
okay.
yes. If you notice what I've been saying, the design system, they are mostly reusable. So
Yeah.
if you take time to create a comprehensive design system, all you need to do is copy and paste the other one and maybe modify it. Say for instance, you're using different text in this other project, just remodify it because you can't create it from scratch again. That's not it's not proactive or productive. So imagine taking a one whole week designing a design system or building a design system, and then you have another project. You not take another week to do new one now. So you can reuse it at any point. So the thing is just learn how to do it. Sometimes, although there are cases where you would want to, there's some companies that would want you to create a design system for them from afresh, and that one is understandable when they are paying you something that you know that if you're creating it, you won't be angry when you're creating it. That's understandable. So you can continue with that. But aside that, you can reuse your design system as far as you did not copy it. You did not copy it from anywhere. You had to do it yourself. It's your property, so you can use it anytime you want to use it.
Okay. And again, I noticed that most times, like, there are some designers I know, most of designers I know, like, they don't usually create design system most of the time. They just go straight to design like that. So I don't know
Yeah,
why.
so the bad thing about that is that's why you see that in a particular design you see different colors in that design, different other colors. You see different sizes, you see different like you just see different things. Like you would not even keep track of what you're doing. So imagine you don't have a design system and you are done with the mobile app. Let me just use you're done with the mobile app and you want to now do the web app. You see that because there's no design system, you now start using, you can easily even forget the fonts that you've been using before and you just use a different one, a different shade of black. So you're using a particular shade of black. What design system will help you do is you see that word consistency, it will help you with it and it will help you faster. So like I gave an example of for people that don't create design system, they don't create components and all of these things. At the end of the day, they'll find out that because one thing you need to create your designs as living things, and living things tends to change. We tend to the boomer of today might not be the person you know tomorrow. There's every possibility that I'll change. There's every possibility that I'll grow more and all of that, and I would advance in my career and all of these things. So if I want to make changes, for instance, to what I did 2 weeks ago, and today the co-founder or person is telling me, okay, so we went for a pitch competition and they told us that we need to change our name, or our investor told us that we need to change our name to capture the whole of Africa. So your name has a form of limitation. So your name is showing that it's a Nigerian brand and you need to change it to capture the whole of Africa. So we are remodeling. We are changing our colors, we are changing our typography, we are changing all of those things. Just imagine what will happen to that person that doesn't have a design system or doesn't use it, that did not use a design system to design. That's more work because you now go back from page one. You now start, imagine you have 1,000. So there's a particular design I'm on currently. If you see the admin, the organization board, like if you see the design board, we have over um 300 screens, if I'm not mistaken, and they are all dashboards. So imagine, because it's a web app, imagine now going back to those dashboards to change the buttons that you use on every screen. I know that a dashboard can have more than one buttons, can have a create new page button here and it will have another one somewhere and say you've used, but with a design system I just need to go to my design system, change it from the main component and it will reflect in other components, and I've changed
Yes.
that stuff in seconds. So in as much as it's fast, if you don't create design system, you can still do the design and you still come out fine, you still implement it. You need to plan for what if there is a change and you need to change it and you've gone far. Would you be able to do that change, or you would just abandon it, or then you now give yourself 1 week? That's when you now see people working tirelessly. They are working every time to just make that changes across board. So that's it. So you
Yeah.
now have to choose which one is favorable for you.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Yeah. So is there another question? Any other question? Okay, so if there's no question, I would hand over to my colleague Believe to just wrap it up and give us some tips also.
Okay, thank you very much, Boma. Okay, to add to what that question was, is when once you're copying a particular design system to use in another application or another project, please make sure that it's aligned to the project you're about to work with, and also make sure that it has a little similarities with what you're doing. Just like what Boma has said so far about design system. Design system is very important and is one of the most important thing as a designer, as a UI UX designer, for you to do before you start your design. So it might take you a long time to do that, and you need to do that very well so that you not find it very hard when designing or when applying them to your designs. You understand what I mean? So, and also I also want to say that when it comes to documentation, and yes, also design system is not only helping you alone, just like what she said, is helping also the developers too. So if you're creating your design system properly, it will help the developer to understand what is the design is all about. Just looking at the design system, he'll capture everything. And when he looks at the design that you've done, and also make sure you align your design properly. So once you're creating your authentication page, make them align them and make your board looks neat. So if the developer is coming to the board, he's seeing everything, like your authentications are there, your probably your pages are there, and everything are being aligned. Just like what she said, the pages are changed. Like when you're copying the screen, that's what I mean. When you're copying the screen, you make sure that you name the screen accordingly and follow up, so that anybody that comes to your board is not going to find it hard to get what you're doing. And also, anybody that sees your design system is not going to find it very difficult to come and ask you questions. And also, as a designer, when creating a design or a design system or working with collaboration with the developers, be ready for corrections, be ready for updates, like yes, for some corrections in your designs, and they can be updating some things. Do you understand? There's a particular application I work with, and when we finished the whole design with the client as the stakeholders, and the developer came in and we tried to amend some things again. So the developer was bringing up some ideas and we had to implement it in the designs. So be ready and be open to that kind of scenario or that kind of situation, so that you will not be having problem with the developers, because that will start causing problem. And just like what she said, follow up with your designs, whatever you're doing, your designs, your documentation, your designs, your design system on point, your documentation, and also follow up with the designs and make sure that they're giving out, like they're developing exactly what you're creating or what they are saying. Okay. So I think that's all I have to say about that.
Well, thank you so much, Believe. That was insightful. So, is there any other question? Any question before we call it a day?
I'm sorry, I have a question. Good evening.
Okay, good evening, Isaac.
It's not concerning this class, it's concerning last class.
Okay.
Can I still ask?
Yeah, sure, you can.
Okay. And before last class ended, I don't know if it was serious. I'm not trying to make someone feel uncomfortable here, but before the last class ended, you said something about us running information architecture on Twitter X. I want to know if it's still something we should do, or if we've done it.
Oh, okay. So no, that you can do it personally for the purpose of learning and all of that, but that was not a task that I was given. So it was just like how will I put it? It's just something that came out from my mouth and that's it. It's not like you need to do it. But For the purpose of learning, you can do it on your own. Like just take time to look at how Twitter is structured and see if you can draw the information architecture out of it.
Okay, so for people that like try to do it or something like that, can we get review from you?
Yeah, sure. So, I think my Slack handle is Boomsy, so you can just send it to me on Slack, and I said Slack. Sorry.
Okay, thank you.
Discord.
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 Another question.
I think there's a question.
There's a question.
From Israel.
Let me check. Is it in the chat?
Yes, yes, the chat. Have you seen it?
Can we get the class recording soonest? Yeah, sure. Want to do. Hello. All right, guys. Believe I take it that there's no other question.